Okay, so now we're going to talk about the function of proteins. Protein can provide energy. It can be converted to ATP, has 4 calories per gram, same as carbohydrates, but it's not the preferred fuel because you'd rather save protein to be used for its other important functions. So fat and carbohydrate are actually the preferred fuels for the body. Plus protein, because it's the only energy yielding nutrient that contains nitrogen, does create nitrogen waste when you break it down to use for energy. So, other functions of protein: growth, maintenance, and repair of body tissues. Even if you're not growing, again, the body's in a constant state of protein turnover, and you don't reutilize the amino acids that are broken down from a protein completely. So you need protein in the diet every day for protein turnover. Okay, so you see them growing. Fluid balance is another important function of protein. When the blood contains a lot of water, it's a watery substance, and when your heart beats, it exerts a pressure on the artery. With that pressure, some fluid is forced out of the artery during the heartbeat. So what causes the water to return into the artery is an osmotic force created by, or an osmotic pull created by blood proteins. So those green dots are proteins in the blood. And so, the fluid is forced out with the pressure of a heartbeat and is drawn back in because of those proteins by a process called osmosis, which you may have studied in biology or chemistry. So if you have a protein deficiency and your blood protein levels drop, you won't have that osmotic pull to get the fluid back into the blood vessels. So the fluid will stay outside of the blood vessel in tissue spaces. This is called edema, the fluid buildup in tissue spaces. Now, sometimes you've probably seen pictures of people, especially little malnourished kids, with a lot of fluid, those big, huge bellies, even though their arms and legs are really thin. That is a fluid imbalance called ascites. Okay, so when the liver is damaged, blood can't flow through the liver through the portal vein like it should. The portal vein takes blood from the digestive tract to the liver to deliver the nutrients, but if the liver's damaged, the blood can't flow through the liver, so a lot of pressure builds up in that portal vein, and so the fluid spills out, and if the person's protein malnourished, it's not drawn back in, so a lot of fluid collects actually in the belly. So this is a picture of ascites. You can see the fluid is surrounding, or is outside of the blood vessel, making the abdomen look really big. These are pictures with some people with ascites. Okay, that's not a beer belly. You can see that this person's arms are actually very thin. You can see that this person's belly is a little bit squishy with fluid. If you pressed on somebody's belly that has ascites, there would be a little bit of swishing. Okay. Another function of protein is that it acts as a buffer. A buffer is something that regulates pH balance, or the acidity or alkalinity of a solution. pH stands for power of the hydrogens. It's the hydrogen ion concentration in a fluid that determines its pH. So on a scale of 1 to 14, 1 is the most acidic, 14 is the most basic or alkali, 7 is neutral. So the body pH is about 7.4. It's actually tightly regulated between 7.35 and 7.45. Outside of that range, the person could die. So it's really important to maintain that normal pH. And the way proteins act as a buffer is that the protein molecules can actually donate hydrogen ions to a fluid, or they can sop up extra hydrogen ions. And since it's the hydrogen ion concentration that determines the pH, this helps maintain a normal body pH. If the person doesn't have great buffering systems, they could go into a state called acidosis or alkalosis, which can be deadly. Osis means condition of, so acidosis is a condition of the body being too acidic. Another function of proteins is the immune system. And when we're talking about these functions, think about what's going to happen if they're not occurring properly because of protein deficiency. So antibodies are actually proteins that destroy foreign invaders. Okay, and then adequate protein is needed to build and make white blood cells, which are important for the immune system to destroy microorganisms. Harmful microorganisms. Okay, so another role of proteins is that some of your body's hormones are proteins: thyroid hormone, insulin, neurotransmitters or brain chemicals. Sometimes they're actually derivatives of amino acids. The reason that people with diabetes can't take insulin pills is that they would digest them because they're a protein. And then all enzymes are actually proteins. Remember, enzymes are facilitate chemical reactions. Okay. Other functions of protein. Protein's a structural component in the body. It helps. It's actually a big component of bone, cartilage, muscle, organ tissues. And then other body proteins include blood clotting factors, transport proteins. There are some things that need to be attached to a protein in the bloodstream to be transported. For example, retinol binding protein transports iron, actually vitamin A throughout the bloodstream. The cell receptors are proteins. Visual pigments are proteins, so there's some other functions of proteins as well, but we'll focus for the exam on the major ones. So here's some things that I want you to think about, which would be better to use for energy: protein or carbohydrates. Know why malnourished kids get those big bellies. Be able to list at least 3 functions of protein. If you don't remember that, reverse and go through this unit again.